In Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this new episode of The Basics. It's a new program where we just sit and chit-chat about things that may benefit us and open our eyes in the midst of this changing, fast-paced world we live in. Before we start, I'd like to greet you all and congratulate you, wherever you are, with the coming of this blessed month of Ramadan. It's one of the greatest seasons of all time. It's a time to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. So I pray to Allah that Allah makes this Ramadan the best Ramadan for us to have ever witnessed, bi'idhnillah. The basics. Basics of what? Whenever you have a project, you have to go back to the basics, whether it's a mathematical project, whether it's a project related to physics, whether it's a mechanical project, anything can't be executed properly without understanding the basics. Islam is no different. Islam is a religion of nature, of ease, of simplicity. Islam is a religion that Allah has given us where the young and old can understand. The rocket scientist and the nomad can understand. The Arabs and the non-Arabs can comprehend and practice with great ease. So it's a religion of Fitrah. This is mentioned in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal says, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. So direct your face, that is yourself, towards the religion, inclining to truth, adhere to fitrah of Allah upon which He has created all people. No change should there be in the creation of Allah. That is the correct religion, but most of the people do not know. What is fitrah? In Arabic, fitrah can refer to nature, how Allah created things in their natural form. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ further explains it, where he says, no newborn child is born except he's born upon fitrah. Okay, what is the explanation? The Prophet goes on to say, ﷺ, and his parents make him a Christian, a Jew, or a fire worshipper. In this case, we can understand that fitrah relates to Islam. And to be more specific, to monotheism. So if a child was or were to be born on an island and left alone without any environment influencing him, such as the parents, schools, etc., he would grow up knowing by what Allah has instilled in him, in his nature, that there is only one God that is worthy of being worshipped. Of course, he doesn't speak Arabic. He doesn't know how to pray or to fast. He doesn't know the rules of Sharia. But the fitrah we're talking about is the belief in the existence of one Creator, one Lord, who's only worthy of being worshipped. This is fitrah. This is, in a nutshell, what Islam is all about. Acknowledging the existence of Allah, acknowledging that there is no God worthy of being worshipped but Allah, and to worship Allah according to what He has prescribed for us. This fact that Islam is the religion of Fitrah is what drives a lot of the people to accept and revert back to Islam. As soon as they hear one single word, as soon as Islam is introduced to them, they immediately feel that they know what this is. It feels like coming back home, going back to your bases. So they accept Islam. And as Muslims, every single day we read in the Fatiha, in our prayers, asking Allah to guide us to the straight path. This straight path, we find that a lot of the Muslims, let alone non-Muslims, a lot of the Muslims have been misguided. They've deviated from the straight path. A lot of them had fallen into what the Prophet ﷺ had warned us from, and that is to divide into 72 sects or cults. This is obvious. We can see this in the Muslim world. So what are we to do? In these series, as I said, it's not something that is scientific. It's not something that is classical or structured. These are just thoughts that come into my mind, and I'd like to share them with you, hoping that they would act as an eye-opener in order to rectify the errors that the Ummah had fallen into, and to align our lives back again with the straight path, so that we would remain steadfast on the straight path till the day we die. So how are we going to do this? I don't know. It's random thoughts that come. I note them down before I come to give this episode. And inshallah, there will be always room for improvement, and you may question and ask what I have stated, maybe challenge what I have stated, and inshallah, through this way, we would hopefully help restoring our path on the straight path and cleansing whatever has gotten into our convictions and beliefs throughout these years. First of all, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, one of the great companions of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the most learned people. The Prophet said ﷺ, if you were, or if you want to learn the Quran, take it from 4. One of them is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So this is a high recommendation from the Prophet ﷺ. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, I took over 70 surahs. I've learned them straight from the Prophet's mouth ﷺ. So he did not hear it from someone else. He took it straight from the Prophet ﷺ directly. So he was among the very steadfast companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and he taught generations and generations of the Muslims. He said, learn knowledge, referring to Islam, before it is taken away. And taking it away is by the death of the people that hold it, meaning the scholars. Beware of extravagance. Beware of going deep or innovating in Islam. and always hold on to the old way. What is the old way? He says in another narration, O people, you will invent new things, and others will invent and innovate new things. So whenever you see something that is new, meaning that we don't remember seeing it before, it is something new, innovated. Whenever you see this, then stick to the first order. So what is the old thing? What is the first order? This is exactly what the scholars of Islam have been preaching and following. Imam Malik, one of the great four scholars and imams of Islam, said, the affair of the latter generations of this ummah will never be corrected except by that by which the affairs of the earlier generations were corrected. These are puzzles, Sheikh. What are you talking about? No, there's no puzzle at all. No ambiguity. It's as straightforward as an arrow. It's as sharp as a blade. Ibn Mas'ud is saying that stick to the old thing, to the first order, which is the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ in the early generations. And this is what Malik ibn Anas is referring to. The later generations, their affairs will not be corrected except with what corrected the previous generations. What corrected the previous generations? It's the message of the Prophet ﷺ. It is the Quran. It is abiding by the understanding of the three favorite generations of Sahaba, Tabi'een, and Tabi'at Tabi'een, companions, those who followed them, and those who followed those who followed them. This is the antidote to the poisons we're consuming on a daily basis from social media and from the general media, from all around us. This is the healing process if we want to cleanse and detox our bodies by abiding by the Quran and the Sunnah, according to the understanding of the three favorite generations. Nowadays, when you look at how Islam is being presented, it's not the real Islam. It is a philosophical, ambiguous, highly sophisticated lingo that people address selected people with. The general masses, they keep their mouths open and saying, huh? They can't understand what is being said. This is not how the Prophet ﷺ preached Islam. It was so straightforward. And unfortunately, the complications increase. So people talk about minute details in fiqh, where people don't know what they're talking about. Others talk about complicated issues of aqeedah and different sects and cults. So when they end up teaching aqeedah, I know what Khawarij is, what Murji'ah is, I know what Mu'tazila and Jahmiyyah are, but I don't know what is my aqeedah. I'm lost. I know everybody's else, but I don't know my own, because we have failed in teaching people aqeedah. And some of us even do not teach aqeedah. Rather, they try to sugarcoat everything. So all of their lectures and speeches are motivational. but never addressing the illnesses of the ummah and the deviant sects and what they have done and corrupted our religion with. Some of the people just talk about comparative religion, which is a good thing. And this is one venue that has to be protected. Even those who use philosophy to counter the atheists, this is one venue that has to be protected, and we need reliable brothers and sisters to address these issues, but not to focus only on that. We have to go back to what corrected and rectified the previous generations if we want our generation to be corrected and fixed. And how is that to be done? Very simple. Go back to the basics. Basics of what, Sheikh? Everything has basics. One of the topics, or some of the topics that I've listed just before I came in, and inshallah tomorrow I'll hope I have something more fruitful. The basics of going back to the Quran. The basics of Tawheed. The basics of giving da'wah. The basics of abiding to the Sunnah in every aspect. The basics of being steadfast on Islam. When you scrutinize those around you and look deep in their lives and affairs, this is not Islam. If you look at some quote-unquote scholars and da'is and students of knowledge's lives, you'll see that this is not Islam. Free mixing, talking to women, flirting with them, not having a defined line that separates Islam from other than Islam. You find da'is supporting LGBTQs, plus, minus, give or take. And this is not Islam. This is not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. You find people changing colors. One year they say something, the following year they change, depending on who pays more, depending on the political influence, depending on many factors, such as what do the masses want. If they want rock and roll, we are here to rock and roll. If they want bluegrass, we can do that. This is not a show that adheres and listens to what you request. Islam is not like that. So we need to go to the basics. And going to the basics is not rocket science. It's just an eye-opener. And I pray to Allah Azza wa Jal that we will manage to do this and fulfill this mission and vision in the coming episodes. This is the end of the first portion of the show. After the break, we will take your questions, inshallah, through Zoom, as you all have the link, hopefully, and through your phone calls, where you will get the numbers displayed at the bottom of the screen. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah, we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. So we take your questions, and the first questioner is Farouk from Qatar.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamullah.
If my friend is like, if he goes for ruku or sujood in salah, he gets feelings that he might be prostrating to other than Allah. So like, what is the way he can make his intention to prostrate to Allah only?
Okay, your friend has a mental problem. due to not going back to the basics. One of the reasons we're deviating from the straight path is overthinking. A man who performs wudu. Why are you performing wudu? For the sake of Allah. He walks to the masjid. Why are you walking to the masjid? I want to pray the prayer that Allah ordered me. He stands in line and row facing the Qibla and anticipates the Imam inaugurational prayer or takbir. Once the Imam says, Allahu Akbar, the man says himself, Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest. Greater than everything. All of this he is fine with. The moment he goes for ruku' and sujood, he gets these thoughts that, oh, I'm prostrating for someone else. So, one of two. Either you are prostrating for someone else, then this is not logical. It doesn't make any sense. Why are you in the masjid? Why are you praying to begin with? The hell with everything else. Go and commit kufr and drink booze and have women. Why abide by Islam? Which is not the case. You're not here because you're a kafir or you have doubts. You're here to pray. So the second reason or option or whatever, that you're getting these thoughts because Satan wants to take you out of prayer and make you stop praying and maybe manage to take you out of the fold of Islam because of the state of despair that you're in. I'm prostrating to someone else. You know you're not. You know that you're not. If I ask you a straightforward question, say, A'udhu Billah, never. But Sheikh, I have these thoughts. Akhi, you are certain that you're not doing it for other than Allah. But these thoughts are random, intrusive thoughts that shaitan is putting them in your head. How to counter this? By simply blocking it. Don't think about it. And if you get these thoughts, if you're praying alone, increase your prostration. So instead of 10 seconds, make it half a minute. Instead of half a minute, make it 3 minutes. So that would kill shaitan softly, and you will, inshallah, win over that. Muhammad from Saudi. Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Allah barakatuh.
US.
Yes, sir.
Sheikh, I wanted to ask about the month of Ramadan, as about the intimacy of husband and wife. Is it prescribed to be totally stay away from it for a month, or it is prescribed for the last 10 days? I was not sure, so I wanted to know about it.
Okay. So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking about issues of intimacy between the spouses. Am I right?
The sunnah, yes, the sunnah, is it prescribed to stay away from having an intimacy?
No. There is no sunnah, akhi. Listen, don't mix apples with oranges. If you don't like your wife and you'd like to stay away from her, say that, be man, and say, I don't want to see you for a whole month. Don't attach this to the sunnah. The sunnah has nothing to do with this. The sunnah, in regards of Ramadan, only came to indicate that the Prophet ﷺ, during the last 10 nights of Ramadan, 10 nights of Ramadan, he used to tighten up his waist wrapper or apron, meaning that this is metaphorical for not having intimacy with the wives, only in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And this is not a recommendation. This is what he used to do. So if you think that I'd like to follow his sunnah and stay in the masjid, of course, when you stay in the masjid, you're not going to have any chance to meet your wife and be intimate with her. So this goes without saying. No, I'm talking about someone who's not doing i'tikaf, who's staying home. Yeah, it is recommended, it is preferable if you devote the time, night time, to prayers, tahajjud, reading the Quran, only in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. But there is no problem at all of being intimate during each and every night of the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So there is nothing prescribed, akhi, neither in the beginning nor at the end. What is haram is to be intimate with your spouse during the daytime of Ramadan when you're fasting. You have to avoid that. But other than that, it is permissible without any problem, inshallah. Ayman from India.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamullah.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Alayna wa alaykum, akhi.
Okay, so I have a thobe which is almost 5 centimeters above my ankles. But when I walk or lean on something, my thobe covers my ankles fully.
What counts, my friend, is your standing position. If your thobe, your garment, your trousers, while standing straight, is above your ankles and not covering it, you're safe. Definitely, the moment you bend for ruku' or sit or lean down, it's going to go down because you're shorter in height. And this has no impact on you, none whatsoever. What counts is the length while you are in normal standing position. CD from Germany.
Walaikum Sheikh.
Salamullah.
Hello Sheikh.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. Ramadan Mubarak, and may Allah accept your fasting and our fasting.
Ameen, all of us, Ya Rab.
Ameen. Sheikh, if someone's making wudu and he's washing his feet, but his face already dried up, so should he repeat his wudu or can he just continue?
Now, this is a very common misconception among the Muslims. They think that the pillars of wudu, which are 6, we know the first 4, washing the face, the arms, wiping the head, washing the feet. The 5th is to be in sequence. So the order has to be in sequence. The 6th one is to be simultaneous. People, some scholars even, interpret what is meant by simultaneous is that you do it one after the other without a gap. And they define the gap of if one of the limbs dried out, this means that there was a gap. And this is not true at all. Drying the limbs, even intentionally, does not fall under breaking these or this 6th pillar of wudu. Imagine if I'm in Saudi Arabia or in Kuwait during the summer where it's 45, 47 degrees Celsius, and I'm performing wudu. The moment I wash my face, before I even finish washing my left arm, my face is totally dry because it's hot. And I'm going to wash it again and then quickly wash my right and left and it's dry again. Repeat this and repeat. What is this? No, there's nowhere in the Sunnah that relates the gap to the dryness of the limb. So there's no problem in that, none whatsoever. And if I would, to give you a bonus, if I'm washing my feet for wudu and I dry my right foot after washing it so that I can put on my socks and then wash my left foot immediately, which takes a couple of seconds, there's no problem in that, inshallah, because this is not breaking the sequence, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Asif from Saudi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam to Allah.
Yes, sir. I have a question. While making wudu in Ramadan, when we put water in our mouth, how to do it so that our Ramadan will not be affected, our fasting? What is the way to do it in a proper way?
The Prophet says, alayhi salatu wasalam, in the hadith of Laqit ibn Saburah, and turn the water in your mouth and nose and exaggerate unless you're fasting. So exaggerating, turning the water, rinsing your mouth and pulling the water up your nostrils is a sunnah. Unless you're fasting, because there is the chance of you swallowing. In normal rinsing and washing or rinsing your nose, there is no possibility of you swallowing water. Put water in your mouth, turn it right and left and spit it out. Put little water in your hand and put it up your nostrils, not exaggerating, and that would do it perfectly without any problem, inshallah. Hamza from Bosnia.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamatullah.
Sheikh, may Allah have mercy on you and your parents.
I mean, you as well and all those who are watching us.
Ameen.
Sheikh, my question is related to raising hands and making dua between adhan and iqama. I understand that it is from the Sunnah. In my place, after Isha adhan, people individually pray 4 rak'ah in the mosque. I pray only 2 rak'ah. So I normally finish my prayer before theirs. And when I raise my hands to make dua, few seconds later, the other people around me finish their prayer of 4 rak'ah as well. And the muezzin will do some loud recitation as an innovation. And then he will say Al-Fatiha, and everybody recites Al-Fatiha silently on their own. And they also raise their hands while doing that. If somebody enters the mosque at that time, they would see me having my hands raised just like those other people around me who are innovating. And the person who enters the mosque would have the impression that I was involved in those innovations too. But in fact, all I was doing was making my own dua between adhan and iqama. My question is, should I not care about this? Or should I stop making my dua before they raise their hands for reciting Al-Fatiha?
If you are recognized and known among your people to be Sheikh Imam Hamza, then maybe you should not do that. So if you recognize to be a celebrity, a well-known, practicing Salafi upon the Sunnah Imam, then you may fear that people would see you and then they will think that this is Sunnah. But if you're 1 in 1,000, if you're a drop in an ocean and nobody knows who you are and everybody's raising their hands in their innovation and you're doing it for the sake of Allah and for the Sunnah, who cares? So don't pay any attention to these thoughts. Unfortunately, this is prevailing in Turkey, in Albania, in Bosnia, in Macedonia, in where people have taken these customs, these, well, innovations from Turkey and elsewhere, maybe Azerbaijan, I don't know. The issue before Fajr, they give a nasheed in the microphones and praising the Prophet ﷺ, Ayat al-Kursi, and between adhan and iqama, they recite the Qul Huwallah, Qul al-Nas, and the muadhin, Ya akhi, I want to pray, I want to read the Quran. What are you doing? Shut the microphone off. Sit down and shut up. But the guy keeps on saying beautiful anasheed or Quran, and all of this is innovation. What are you doing? You're innovating in the religion of Islam. Anyone who looks at you says, this is not Islam. Oh yes, he's recently reading the Quran. Show me in the Quran or in the Sunnah or in the doing of the companions or the tabi'een or tabi'een that they used to do these practices. No, they did not do it, but it's a good thing. SubhanAllah, you know more than them? You're more righteous than the Prophet ﷺ? He said, no, astaghfirullah. Then you are innovating in the religion. And whatever innovation you're doing is rejected. Allah will not accept it. Allah will punish you for it. Sheikh, I'm reciting the Quran. Allah will punish me for that. Yes. If you recite it in the toilet, Allah will punish you for that. What are you doing? This is all innovation. You are creating, this is part of today's program, the basics. You are going out of the basics. You're innovating in the religion of Allah, and Allah would not accept that from you. So, Akhi Hamza, going back to your question, if you're not a well-known imam there, ignore it and keep on doing your dua. Muhammad from Pakistan.
Yes, I have a question that people call himself Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Salfi, Shia, and they also innovate in Abada, like Taraweeh, the word Shahada. So it is not innovation because these labels were not at the time of the Prophet.
Okay, I think we've addressed this so many times. Saying that I don't go around people and say, listen, I'm a Salafi, I'm this, I'm that. What are you? I'm a Muslim. That's it. That's all what I have to say. I'm a Muslim. But when there are many sects, so there are kafir sects, like Ahmadi, Qadiani, Baha'i, whatever, and they claim to be Muslims. You're a Muslim? Yes, I'm a Muslim. This guy says he's a Muslim. No, he's not a Muslim. He is a Qadiani. And what are you? I am a Muslim from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So the term of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah was introduced when these sects came claiming to be Muslims. So we needed an identification. Like nationalities, what are you? I'm a human being. Yeah, I know you're a human being. I don't see a tail and two long ears. But what are you? What's your nationality? Where do you come from? Here we have to distinguish between nationalities and countries. So I say I'm a Saudi, he says I'm an Emirati, and he says I'm an Egyptian. No problem. But if it happens to reach the level of arrogance and pretending that I'm a Salafi, wherever I go, no, you're this and that, I'm a Salafi, and it becomes like a label, like a party, this is not permissible, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Mustafa from Saudi.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamullah.
I want to ask you about which is the best recite in the month of Quran. Recite Quran or to keep the old memorized?
Well, this is a good question. What's best? To recite the Quran or to memorize it? It depends on the short-term investment and the long-term investment. Short-term investment is reading it. So if I am lazy, and if I don't have enough time to devote to memorizing and revising the Quran, I would recite only 1 juz a day. So every month I'll finish the whole Quran. Following month, the same thing. But if I have the energy and the enthusiasm to invest long term, then nothing beats memorizing the Quran. Because this would benefit you in the future when you're older. This would keep the Quran in your heart and it would do wonders for you. Now, in Ramadan, we have a dilemma because this is a season. And the more I read the Quran, the more reward I get. So what should I do? This depends on where you find your heart. If you find your heart in reciting 5 or 6 juz', finishing the Quran every 5 days, so be it. If you find your heart in revising Surah Al-Baqarah and memorizing it and following the Imam because you've revised a full juz' or half a juz', so you know what the Imam is going to recite and you revise this and work hard on it, so be it, and Allah knows best. Ahnaf from Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Samtullah.
So, Sheikh, Allah in Surah Al-Mu'minun, He says, and they who turn away from ill speech. So I was wondering, does the word ill speech only include the word speeches that are in vain or actions as well? For example, if I play a video game and it doesn't contain remembrance of Allah, would it also be considered as ill speech?
Ill speech means anything that distracts you from Allah Azza wa Jal and may include sin. So this includes, generally speaking, where people are gathered. So if you go to a friend's reunion or you gather or hang out with the boys and they chit-chat and speak about things that are, if not sinful, they're not that permissible. This is ill speech. What the disbelievers talk about, insulting our religion, this is ill speech. Now, if you're involved in actions that do not require speech, but the actions are bad, watching wrestling, this is not ill speech, but the action itself is ill. So this is wasting time. Playing video games that include excessive violence or lies or wasting of time or false beliefs, all of this is also part of it, and the prohibition applies. Sadiqa from Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This time after my period, I see my purity, like the white thread discharge, and I take my major ritual bath and I started praying. But after one day, I spotted some brown discharge. Does that impact on my purity? Do I need to take major bath again?
Okay. Now, spotting and colored discharges have 2 times to appear. First time is when a woman is pure. She's living normally, and all of a sudden, prior to her menses, she may get these brownish, yellowish, or spotting discharges. The most authentic opinion is that she must ignore. If she's pure and she gets these discharges before her menses, she must ignore them until the flow of the blood is established. Because hayd, menstruation, in Arabic, linguistically means to flow. And they say حاض الوادي, when the valley is flowing. So some women get these brownish discharges accompanied by cramps, back pain. For 3-4 days, they stop praying, hoping that their menses will come. And all of a sudden it stops and they don't have anything for 4-5 days. And they call, Sheikh, what to do? Well, you're wrong. You should not have done what you had done in stopping prayer. So this is scenario number 1. When you get the brownish discharges or the spotting, before your menses starts, you disregard it. Scenario number 2 is when you have your menses, and on the 5th day or 6th day, the flow of the blood stops, you do not see your purity, and you see these regular yellowish or brownish discharges. Mother Aisha, the women at her time used to send her their pads, asking her, is this white discharge, is this sufficient for us to make ghusl? And she says, do not hasten until you see your purity, which means that brownish and yellowish discharges connected to menses at the end is part of the menses. So these are the 2 scenarios in regards of your brownish or colored discharges. Now the question is, if if a woman says, if my period is over and I see my purity, okay, now you take ghusl, and after that I see brownish discharges or yellowish or spotting, not the flow of blood. In this case, this falls under the first scenario. You ignore it, simply wash yourself, change this impurity, and make fresh wudu before you pray, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. I think we have the final question is from Wasim.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamualaikum.
There's an adhan going on, so it's okay. So there will be sound at the background. But yeah, so Sheikh, my mother passed away 2 years ago, and may Allah make it easy for her in the grave and hereafter. My question is, what are the etiquettes I need to follow when I visit her grave? So when I visit her grave, should I stand next to her grave, raise my hand, and pray, make the dua, Assalamu alaikum ahlal diyar, and they make Darud Ibrahim on her, Surah Fatiha on her, and then proceed to make dua in my own local language to make it easy for her and forgive her sins? And then is it permissible if I get emotional? Is it okay for me to maybe if I get emotional, cry or shed a tear?
Okay, I will answer you, Wasim, because we're almost out of time. The etiquettes of visiting a grave. When you enter, you say the dua. Assalamu alaikum dara qawmi mu'minin, antum as-sabiquna wa nahnu lahiquna, sallallahu lana wa lakum al-afiyah. The prescribed dua. There are a number of du'as. When you make dua, are we supposed to face the Qibla? It is not a requirement. You can face the Qibla and you can face the grave. You're not making dua for the grave. And when the Prophet ﷺ said make dua for your brother and ask Allah for forgiveness and make dua for him to be steadfast, he did not, alayhi salam, say, face the Qibla. So just making the dua would do. Should I praise Allah Azza wa Jal and offer salutation upon the Prophet ﷺ to make dua? That's recommended. Should I recite the Fatiha? Totally prohibited. It's an innovation. If I get emotional and I cry, there is no problem in that. This is human nature. We all feel sentimental and emotional when we remember our loved one and deceased one, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. This is all the time we have until we meet next time tomorrow, same time. I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا